We welcome you to a brand new hour of CBS Sports HQ. I'm Haley Sutton. Cut day on Tuesday saw teams secure that magic number 53 on the roster. And still a day later, clubs continuing to put the final touches on that roster ahead of week one. One move, already a familiar one. The Vikings, of course, nearing a deal to acquire wide receiver Adam Thielen from the Carolina Panthers, according to our NFL insider Jonathan Jones. The 35-year-old Thielen spent the first 9 years of his career in Minnesota, where he was a two-time Pro Bowler. So maybe addressing some concerns for a potential contender in Minnesota, but of course some other players may be looking to do the same elsewhere. We've got our guy Pete Prisco joining us here on set as we take a look at some of these contenders and some top concerns for them when it comes to the NFC side of our Super Bowl predictions. I want to start with the Adam Thielen trade, though. Kind of feels like to me this is a Band-Aid for the first couple of weeks of the season to get them through, but how would you grade the trade here on either side?
Yeah, it is a Band-Aid because you have injuries. Jefferson's hurt, but he's supposed to be ready to go for week one. Addison suspended for 3 games, and then you have Naylor, who's banged up as well. So they had hoped that Felton, the rookie, would have stepped in and done more. So far, he hasn't. It's going to take him a little bit of time. He's going to be a good player, but in the immediate need, they had to go out and do something. So I get it, going to get a guy you know, going to get a guy who's comfortable in that city, loves it. You know, he played college football there where they used to train down at Mankato. And so I think it's a good move from that standpoint, but you're giving up a 4th-round pick. There's value in the 4th round, and so I think it's a little rich. You know, there's a trade-off of other picks, but essentially it's a 4th for Thielen and a 7. So I give him a B- from that standpoint. I don't like giving up a 4th-round pick for that.
What about for Carolina?
A B, and I don't love it from their standpoint either, in large part because I think he was such a nice security blanket for Bryce Young last year. You know, I know they have Ted McMillan and some other guys, but I think he was a guy that he leaned on a little bit down the stretch, and so I think from that standpoint it's a little concerning.
Okay, so obviously still some concerns on either side here. We do have I'm looking at a video on social of Adam Thielen celebrating with his daughter and his dog. They're, to your point, excited to go back to Minnesota. Thielen did spend some time training with J.J. McCarthy, so it doesn't feel like that relationship will be very foreign, but there are still some concerns, Pete, when we continue the conversation with the Vikings. J.J. McCarthy, one of your concerns for the Vikings this year.
No question about it. And look, he hasn't played. And anytime you throw him in there, everybody acts like he's a second-year. No, he's essentially a rookie because he hasn't played football. And it's been a long time since he's played a competitive game of football. So we don't know what you're going to get from J.J. McCarthy. I was not one of those guys who loved his college tape. I thought he was good. I didn't think he was great. And you're essentially replacing Sam Darnold, who rolled up big numbers last year, with J.J. McCarthy. And when you do that, do you truly believe he can step in and put up those same type of numbers? I'm not so sure he can. There's been some talk of concern about accuracy issues during the training camp and preseason for him. So we'll see. It's a great situation when everybody's healthy. When Jefferson's there, when Addison's there, they can run the ball. The offensive line has been upgraded. So he steps into a good situation. Kevin O'Connell's a great offensive mind. But again, let's see it before we start to say that he's going to step in and do the same thing Sam Darnold did.
The Vikings are going to take on the Bears in week 1, so that means we get to see Caleb Williams, versus J.J. McCarthy. And, of course, in all of that is Ben Johnson, the former Lions offensive coordinator, who is now the head coach. We go to Detroit next. See the 6 degrees of separation I just took you through there, Pete?
It's true, in that division.
But when it comes to the Lions, your big concern, notably and rightfully so, is the fact that that team lost both of their coordinators.
And those guys were a big part of what they did. Look, Ben Johnson was so creative on the offensive side of the ball, but we kind of overlook what Aaron Glenn did. Aaron Glenn had to compensate for losing Aiden Hutchinson and a bunch of bodies last year, and he did a great job doing that. So you replace those guys. Kelvin Shepard takes over defensive coordinator. Johnny Morton takes over as the offensive coordinator. There's going to be a transition phase there. That's just inevitable. They can say Johnny Morton knows the offense. He's been around Dan Campbell. He knows what he wants, and Shepard's been around. But the difference is who's calling the plays, the voice in the headset, and I think that'll take a little adjusting. So I am a little worried about that. We'll see. That might be great coaches. We don't know, but until we see what they can do, it's always going to be a concern.
Kind of like the same thing with J.J. McCarthy. Just until we see it, we don't know. So we'll keep a question mark there. You told us, and you've been telling us all offseason, it feels like that you believe in the Packers. If there was a concern, though, something holding you up from them getting to that Super Bowl, what would it be? And
it's concern number 1 for them as well. I mean, talking to Matt LaFleur, it's a major concern for him is, can they generate the pass rush when they need it? And Rashawn Gary's been a good player, but he needs to be a better player. And, in fairness to him, he was one of the most chipped defensive ends in the league last year. That tells you everybody was focusing on him, in large part because he didn't have much on the other side. Well, Lucas Van Ness, the former first-round pick, has had a great summer. He's been dominant at times in their practices. If they can get him going and help Gary, that gives them a 1-2 punch off the edge. And Kenny Clark's healthy. You know, he didn't play healthy last year. He was hurt all year, and that showed up in his pass rush. So I think you combine all of those, I think they should be better rushing the passer. And if they are, they're going to be a pretty good defense.
I have some personal pass rush questions, concerns on this list later down the road, but we'll get to that when we get there. Let's talk about the 40.
What's up, Vikings Nation? This is Victor here with Report Vikings. And guys, we got to talk about something wild that's starting to heat up. Rumors are floating around that Tyreek Hill, yeah, that Tyreek Hill, the future Hall of Famer and one of the most feared weapons in football, could actually be on the trade block. And guess what? The Minnesota Vikings might be a sleeper destination. Now, let's back up for a second. Tyreek already demanded a trade from Miami about 7 months ago when the Dolphins missed the playoffs. He eventually cooled off, but his name hasn't left the rumor mill since. And just this past weekend, ESPN's Jeremy Fowler dropped some breadcrumbs saying teams are quietly monitoring Hill's situation. Miami insists they're not moving him, but we all know how fast things can change in this league. So why the Vikings? Why even bring us into this conversation? Well, look at our wide receiver situation right now. Justin Jefferson is still dealing with that hamstring and hasn't been a full participant in camp. Jordan Addison? Suspended for the first 3 games. Rondale Moore, likely out for the year after that brutal injury. Jalen Naylor has been quiet, and rookie Ty Felton needs time to develop. That's a whole lot of question marks. And if Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell really want to set up J.J. McCarthy for success in year 1, what better way than dropping Tyreek Hill into this offense alongside Jefferson? And here's something that gives this story even more juice. Tyreek Hill grew up a Vikings fan. He's literally said, "I was a Minnesota Vikings fan. I love the Vikes, man." He even called Adrian Peterson the best running back of all time. That's why he loved the purple. So if a trade did happen, you know he wouldn't be mad about finishing his career in Minnesota. Picture this for a second, Vikings fans. A 2025 WR room of Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Adam Thielen, Jordan Addison, Jalen Naylor, Ty Felton. You give J.J. McCarthy that group, and suddenly our rookie QB is set up with the best supporting cast in the league. That's a Super Bowl level wide receiver room, no exaggeration. Now, let's keep it real. Hill's contract is massive. $30 million a year. Fitting that into our cap space would be a huge challenge. Plus, he's 31, dealing with an oblique injury, and Miami would want serious draft capital back. Bleacher Report even said that moving him now doesn't make much sense for the Dolphins. So yeah, this isn't exactly a likely move, but it's not impossible either. And with Kwesi, we've seen he's not afraid of bold trades. Just think about last year with Dallas Turner. So here's my question for you, Vikings Nation. If the opportunity came up, would you want the Vikings to go all in and trade for Tyreek Hill? Or do you think the price tag and the risk would be too much for where this team is right now? Drop your takes in the comments. Let me know what you'd do if you were Kwesi. And don't forget, hit that like button, share this video with your fellow Vikings fans, and subscribe to Report Vikings so you don't miss any updates on this crazy rumor. Because let's be real, if Tyreek Hill ever rocked that purple and gold, it would change the entire trajectory of this franchise. Skol Vikings!